Hi, welcome to Comptroller's Corner. I'm your host, Pat Curry, joined as always by Buffalo Comptroller Mark Schroeder. Our top story today, the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority has been awarded a $250,000 grant by the City of Buffalo, despite Comptroller Schroeder bringing attention to the fact that the authority owes taxpayers more than $4 million. Now, Mark, the bulk of this money owed to taxpayers is for heating and gas bills and police services that are provided to the Municipal Housing Authority.
Right.
And you said, let's put the brakes on this. Let's get a resolution on this money before we give another handout to BMHA to get them out of a budget deficit.
Yeah, I think the one thing, Patrick, that the audience, the constituents of the City of Buffalo understands is that I have a very specific role as the Buffalo City Comptroller, and so therefore there are times when we will point things out to those who have the authority to make policy decisions. And so again, we stay in our lane. I stay in my lane. And what we did here, this was brought up to me, this whole Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority issue was brought up to me. And so as we looked into it further, it became very clear to us. And if you go to the financial statements that was prepared by an outside auditor for the BMHA, it is pretty clear to me that the authority, not the council, wrote off $3.4 million. They do not have the authority to do so. At the end of the day, if the Common Council wants to do that, they have the authority to do it. Just like you pointed out, the Common Council went through a resolution and appropriated $250,000 to the BMHA in spite of the fact that this is really not resolved, in my view, in terms of what they owe the city. But again, I'm going to stay in my lane, and the council and the mayor, they have responsibility to this. They created this authority, so therefore they have a responsibility to it. Our job is to point things out, point it out clearly, and then identify for those who have to make the decision. This decision is for the Buffalo Common Council.
Mentioning the council, it should be pointed out that Councilman Scanlon, Golumbek, and Franzek voted against the $250,000 bailout for BMHA.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about the fact that you mentioned that the BMHA wrote this off their books without the approval from the council, they didn't even inform the council that they were writing it off the book, or the water board, who $1.7 million of that is due to the water board for water provided to the BMHA.
Yeah, and so again, that is the reason why we pointed it out. I mean, we clocked in with the clerk and the Buffalo Common Council under the subject, the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority claims debt forgiveness without city approval or knowledge. And so therefore, we pointed out to the Buffalo Common Council, and quite frankly, Patrick, I don't really keep score in terms of what council members vote yes or vote no. I really don't, because my responsibility really is to point out to them certain things that should be concerning to them, because I'm concerned about it as the fiscal officer of the City of Buffalo. At the end of the day, they have the authority to make decisions, and we're gonna continue to do what we do. We're gonna point things out to city departments, city authorities, and then at the end of the day, the Common Council and the mayor, they have the authority to do what they want. One point I'll make though, the $250,000 that was appropriated to the BMHA. In my view, the council president and the Common Council have the responsibility to track that money. They asked the question to BMHA Executive Director, how and what is this money going to be used for? And in my view, I don't know if there has been a sufficient answer yet. That is not my problem. That's their problem. But I'm pointing it out to our constituents. that these are the types of things that happen when people make decisions and then they don't follow up. It usually isn't a good thing for the citizens of Buffalo.
Now, you floated the idea of making a direct rental subsidy right to these residents. You think the money could go a lot farther if it went to them, but instead, this money's going to the BMHA, who is going to give a portion of it to these for-profit private corporations that manage the Frederick Douglass Towers. There's Frederick Douglass Associates 1, Part 2, Part 3, and they own title to many of these towers. And then the BMHA has their own administrative costs. They have a very high payroll. So in actuality, the residents are the last ones in line when it comes to getting the money. And at the end of the day, they might not get anything.
And again, Patrick, everything you just said is true. And so therefore, my answer again is I'm going to stay in my lane. Every council member has a responsibility to those who live in the 28 different developments, which is called BMHA. They have a responsibility to their constituents to make sure that they are getting the services that they deserve and that they have earned based on their income eligibility. They've earned it. They have to have these amenities and these different programs that are at the housing authority developments. At the end of the day, when it's suggested that the $250,000 may be going to for-profit organizations and not the people who live in these developments, that is up to the Common Council and to the board of directors who are all appointed by the mayor of the city of Buffalo, and there are 2 who are elected by the people. They really need to look into this, and I would encourage them to do that, to make sure that the residents are the ones who are the recipients of the taxpayers' money.
Now, another conflict that arose as a part of this is the fact that the city treasurer, who's responsible for collecting money due to the city, is also the chair of the Municipal Housing Authority's board. Now, inherently, there's a conflict there because the person in charge of collecting this debt is also the chair of the organization that owes the debt.
Again, Patrick, you know what? I'm staying in my lane again. We pointed it out. Certain media outlets have pointed it out. There's only one person who can really make that change. There's only one person who created this, and that is the mayor. The mayor's chairman of the BMHA is his appointment, and also the mayor's appointment to who the treasurer is of the city of Buffalo is the mayor's appointment. So if the mayor wants to do something different, he can do something different. If he chooses not to, he chooses not to. I've pointed it out. It's my responsibility to point it out, and now I've pointed it out to our constituents who watch this show and to the council members who have a responsibility also to the same constituents that I have a responsibility to.
One of the things that you're concerned about is there's these private for-profit companies that invested in these public housing developments, and there's not any transparency to who these companies are, who is managing them, who is profiting off of taxpayer dollars. And that's a real problem for you because you have made one of the tenets of your administration transparency so that taxpayers know where their money's going. And with BMHA and the Urban Renewal Agency, there's often this thick smokescreen where it's tough for a private citizen, nonetheless a comptroller, to find out what exactly is going on and who's actually getting the money.
Yeah. So this will be an ongoing saga, really, and it's unfortunate, but we will continue probing and we will continue asking questions. We will be responsive to the Common Council. The Common Council has requested a couple of, they've sent us a letter on some BMHA stuff, and they've sent us a letter on some macro things having to do with delinquent payments or people who are in or companies that are in the arrears with the city. And these are all very legitimate things, and we will be responsive to the request. But we also have the authority to audit and to do certain reports. And we are going to pursue these for-profit organizations just to make sure we're clear, and so that the taxpayers are clear to how this works. And right now, there is really not any clarity at all about it. Nobody seems to know much about it, and we've pointed it out. And again, that's our responsibility, and then others really have a responsibility to probe a little further.
Now, I know your city auditor, Kevin Kaufman, has already requested some information on these Frederick Douglass Associates Partners, parts 1, 2, and 3, and in order to determine, who these organizations are and where the money's going. That was actually in the approval item. It said that the comptroller has the authority to audit whether BMHA is adhering to the terms of the agreement, and Kevin Kaufman is already starting that process.
Yeah, but again, I'll tell you, and it's something that we will do. And again, I just want to keep reiterating to the taxpayers of the city of Buffalo. I know what my responsibility is in audit and control that I'm responsible for. We know what our responsibility is by charter, and to me, this is disappointing. It's disappointing only because the BMHA, they really have a responsibility, and the mayor and the council, they have a responsibility to manage. And right now, I'm concerned about it, and I think the taxpayers are concerned about it. And I can tell you, if you ask those folks who live in some of these housing developments, they have concerns also. Their concerns may not be monetary. Their concerns may be in terms of maintenance, in terms of services, and things of that nature. And I think right now that the BMHA really needs to take a look at themselves from the top down and make some, very important decisions. Because if you go back to 1934, there are reasons to why there are housing developments around the city of Buffalo. There's reasons for it. And so they need to make sure that they are staying close to what the goals and objectives were, to why there are these housing opportunities for people who need it in the city of Buffalo.
So one thing I also would like to point out is that you've been asking where this money is for over 2 years now. In fact, your city auditor, Kevin Kaufman, wrote a letter 2 years ago to the city treasurer, who's also the BMHA chair, asking where the money is that's due to the city. He received no response for that.
Yeah.
And also, this has come up that, you have pointed out when other organizations owe money. You pointed out when Rural Metro owed taxpayers money when they were considering a new contract. And you actually have been working with Erie County on money owed to the city by them. So this is an all-encompassing effort by you to look at, who are the top organizations or companies. One of them is Brand On, the company that got kicked out of the marina, Erie Basin Marina, after you found they're ripping off taxpayers.
Yeah.
And you've been pursuing them as well. So you're going to be pursuing, these top 5, top 10 of these organizations that are owe taxpayers millions of dollars.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, Patrick. In all due respect to the Buffalo Common Council, and they, in my view, they have the hardest job. It's the hardest elected job in any municipality, is being a council member. But at the end of the day, I understand when they say publicly from the 13th floor that they have a responsibility, to those who live in the BMHA developments. But also, I would point out, as the Buffalo City Comptroller over the last 5 years, not only have I pointed out things in terms of mismanagement from the BMHA, but also those who are the most vulnerable in the city of Buffalo. We have pointed out a lot of discrepancies within what is called BMHA and the HUD money that comes in, over $20 million a year to the city of Buffalo for the most vulnerable. And I will tell you, I'm not impressed at all with the administration or with those who have the responsibility to dispense with the money to make sure those who need emergency money to take care of the raining that's taking place in their living room I'm very disappointed that they are not doing a better job. All I can do is point it out in the most respectful way, and we've done report after report after report on this. And somebody now needs to execute many of the findings and recommendations that we have made. That's their job. It's not my job. We've done our job.
Well, Mark, we've got to take a quick break. When I get back, I want to talk about another audit you did that led to an addition to the city's bottom line.
Thanks, Pat.
Stay tuned for more Comptroller's Corner after this.
The Buffalo Employment and Training Center is your one-stop source. The center conveniently brings employment, training, and other workforce services to customers and employers in a one-stop environment. And the center is open and free to anyone seeking employment. If you are out of work, not happy with your current job, or are looking to improve your computer skills, the Buffalo Employment and Training Center is right for you. We are conveniently located in downtown Buffalo at 77 Goodell Street with plenty of free parking. So, what are you waiting for? Give us a call at 856-JOBS. That's 856-JOBS today.
Hi, welcome back to Comptroller's Corner. I'm your host, Pat Curry, joined as always by Buffalo Comptroller Mark Schroeder. An audit by Comptroller Schroeder on the city's streetlights and electricity accounts has led to a $1 million refund from National Grid. Now, Mark, this audit started a few years ago.
Lord, it has. 3 years ago, almost.
It's a very long process.
It is.
And you looked at a similar audit done in the 90s, and that audit was performed in part by an outside consultant named Troy and Banks. Now, you thought that because of the manpower and expertise involved, that a similar approach would be prudent because the people that know these tariffs that govern the street lighting system are very knowledgeable in that fact. So you actually did an RFP, and you sent it out to all types of companies like this, and what you found was that not only did Troy and Banks offer you the best price, which was about half of their normal rate if you weren't to go to RFP,
right,
but also that they had the most experience, not only in New York State, but also they had experience in Buffalo and Western New York. So you hired them, and they went to every single one of this city's 32,000 streetlights, examined through all the city's bills, which are hundreds of pages, and found some discrepancies in what the city was getting and what they're being charged. Now, one of the major discrepancy was for what's called luminaires. Now, these are light fixtures on the stop of street lights, and it has the bulb and the functioning component electrical units to make them operable. And what your audit and Troy and Banks found was that the city was getting charged for luminaires that didn't exist. And that led to a refund plus interest, which is over $1 million. And the audit, that's only one claim. There's about 15 or so other claims that could lead to additional refunds to taxpayers.
Yeah. So if we go back really to the beginning of August of 2013, and I give credit to the full Common Council, every member voted unanimously to initiate an audit, asking the Comptroller to consider doing an audit. So this is something where I think the citizens of Buffalo need to know. This is an area where there has been total cooperation from the Common Council, from the mayor, and the mayor's commissioner of Public Works, working with the Comptroller's Office, the Division of Audit, and then when we went through the process, as you noted, we wanted to find the very best auditor to help us that had the skill, the experience, to be able to help us figure out, are we being treated fairly? And the citizens of Buffalo know we have not been. That is by virtue of what you noted. There are approximately 15 different claims. The first claim really has to do with what we could call a billing error. But at the end of the day, we were taken advantage of, the city of Buffalo and the citizens of Buffalo. And the result of the Common Council and the mayor and the commissioner and us working together is a $1 million back into the general fund. And now we have the ability, we have the prospect of gaining a lot more money with the other 14 or so claims that we have categorized. We have categorized them, and if National Grid, if they think for a minute that we don't know what we're talking about, they better think again, because they already wrote a check to the citizens of Buffalo for $1 million. So I would suggest to them strongly, be careful here. We know what we're doing. We have the backing of the Common Council. We have the backing of the administration, and we're all working together to protect the citizens of Buffalo.
The Corporation Council has been involved too.
And that's all within the mayor. And so we're all on the same team when it comes to fairness. And it's clear to me we have not been treated fairly. And I've told Kevin Kaufman, our city auditor, who's a great auditor, I told him we're not going to ever depend again on the Common Council. In 1990, thankfully the Common Council came through. In 2013, the Common Council, now we would have got here anyways, because one of the things that we've shifted to, Patrick, over the last 4 years that I've been controller, is that we've identified expenditures and revenues as being the very biggest thing that we can do. And we know the single largest expenditure that the city of Buffalo has is for street lighting. So we would have got here to this audit anyways, but I am thankful for the Common Council. But the one thing I want to point out to the citizens is that I already have an arrangement with the city auditor, and we are talking to some council members to make sure that on an ongoing basis, whatever it is, every 2 years, every 4 years, that there's a requirement for us to do a utility audit to make sure and prevent us from, getting cheated is what really happened.
Now, the reason why that is so important to do it regularly is because there's a statute of limitations.
Right.
So if the city waits too long to do an audit like this, they could be out of the money if they were overcharged.
Right, exactly. And so that is the reason why, as the city controller and the citizens of Buffalo elect me every 4 years, I think what we need to do is put some sort of a clause, legislation, whatever the appropriate vehicle is, to make sure, even if it's amending the charter, that the city of Buffalo and the audit and control, the controller's office, is required to do an audit every 4 years or 5 years, so that we are within the statute of limitation.
And this audit was lingering for a while, and there wasn't much progress. And then the Public Service Commission got involved, and also there was leadership changes in who the city deals with on National Grid side. And since that occurred, we've seen some progress, and that's after that we received this significant check.
Yeah, and so as we've pointed out, ordinary audits, it could be maybe a month or two, maybe 3 or 4, depending on what we're looking at. Something like this has really taken a long time, but it's a very arduous audit. And when you pointed out at the outset that our team that we've brought in, Troy and Banks, they had the responsibility of checking 32,000 different light fixtures. That's a lot of work. It really is, and it's not only a lot of physical work, but there's a lot of tabulation, and there really has to be a lot of knowledge coming from audit and from Troy and Banks to kind of figure out all this information. And that's really where the cooperation from the city has come in, because I know, Patrick, you've been involved with this with Commissioner Steve Stepniak and others. They have been on the top of their game when it comes to this, and they've been very helpful in going through files and going through different things to make sure that if there were any surprise attacks by National Grid, we want to see, is it really there? When there was one case where National Grid kind of changed the game, and nobody seems to know about it within the city of Buffalo. That's bogus. That's ridiculous. And it happened long before we got here.
2007.
And it happened probably just the time that the mayor became mayor. And so I don't know what was in the file back then, but National Grid does, and they should have it, and we should get it. And I still don't think that's happened yet.
Switching gears a little bit, we just celebrated Easter, and you had a special guest come in from Ireland to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Easter Rising. Now, this is the rebellion in Ireland that led to Ireland's freedom and independence. And you had Martin Ferris, who's a TD, it's equivalent of a U.S. congressman, come in to talk at the Buffalo Irish Center about the significance of the Rising and where Ireland and America is today.
The Honorable Martin Ferris is a remarkable man. He has established a very close relationship with Congressman Brian Higgins over the last 10 to 12 years. And so Martin Ferris has come into Buffalo several times. He has family here in Buffalo. He's a member of Sinn Féin, and as a young man, he was in the provisional IRA. And he was jailed for his beliefs and for what he thought was important. Many people know that there's really a partial freedom in Ireland, and it has to do with the Republic, but it does not include 6 counties in the north. And so the peace process has been going on for some time. And I give an awful lot of credit to Congressman Brian Higgins, who was a part of it, to Martin Ferris, who is a member of the Irish Parliament, and to Jerry Adams, who is a representative from Northern Ireland, and they have worked very hard in a peaceful way to try to keep this peace accord and to try to continue to have communication so that there will be a total free Ireland. But at the same time, it's important that all of the people who live certainly on the border of both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, one of their main objectives is public safety and to make sure that there is peace for people, no matter what the religion is. And I think that's an important thing. And we were proud to have Martin Ferris in Buffalo last week, and he did a great job.
Now, Mark, we're all out of time, but you can't talk about Easter without talking about Dyngus Day. You were there.
Yeah, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted, Patrick. I can't go any further with the 2 Irish parades, the Old Parade and the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and then with Dyngus Day, which is so much fun. But it's fun/important because it keeps the tradition alive for Polish culture, and I was happy to participate in that day.
Well, thanks, Mark. We're all out of time. Thanks for joining us in Comptroller's Corner.
You're very welcome.
And thanks for joining us at home. Make sure to check out the Comptroller's website at city-buffalo.com/comptroller, the Comptroller's YouTube page, our Facebook page, and our Twitter handle. On behalf of Comptroller Mark Schroeder, this is Pat Curry signing off.